All right. How many are here to learn how to get 4%?
5%.
Because 4.5. Because you've never done it before. All right. How many people have done it before? Scott, Janice, you just got a 7% listing agreement signed.
Ooh, 7%.
We're going to talk about buyers today. We'll do a separate training on how to get 7% listing agreements signed. You're going to notice today that I am going to be creating the PowerPoint a little bit on the fly. The reason being I had to QC about 25 files last night and I didn't have time to do the PowerPoint. This is half of them right here. Okay. Those of you that are online, that's how many deals went into escrow this week. That's pretty good. These two files have VIP fees totaling $11,000 on top of the selling office commissions that these agents are already going to get. Am I distracting you guys? Right? So here's a deal, $790,000 purchase. Quick math, right? 3%, 24 grand-ish, right? Another $8,500 in VIP fees, $84.95. So instead of 23,000 or 24,000, this agent's getting almost 32,000. That's all right, isn't it? Right? That's because what you do is worth something, plain and simple. How many of you have seen a listing commission or selling office commission of 2.5%?
No.
You've never seen one?
A lot.
A lot. Sorry, I thought you said no. Right? Have you ever seen a 2?
Yep.
Have you ever seen a 1.5?
Yes.
Have you ever seen a 1?
Yes. I did one transaction. I got only 1%.
The bigger the deal potentially.
And here's the
some-
problem. That 1% commission, do you know why it was set at that? Because the seller was a better negotiator than the listing broker. And it affected Janice. Shouldn't be that way. Right? Was the level of Janice's service to that buyer any different than the level of service she gives every other buyer? Of course not, right? So she and you should get paid the same no matter what quality negotiator the listing broker is. Would you agree with that? I know I do. I would, right? So what I'm going to teach you today are the steps and techniques to make sure that you get paid 4% plus $595 on every deal that you want to, regardless of what the SOC is. The SOC could be 1, it could be 2.5, it could be 3, it could be whatever, right? All right, so let me start by showing you kind of where this comes from. And then we'll dive into what's involved and who you need to make sure you have hired to help you get this, all right? So who's seen the VIP buyer addendum? Right, it comes straight out of this folder. This is the buyer folder. It has a blue dot. Seller folders have a green dot. When I'm going to meet with a buyer, whether it's in our conference room or somewhere outside this office, I go, Kat, can I have a buyer folder? You should do the same thing, right? That way you are prepared to serve them consistently the same way every time. That's how we do it, right? Now the second page on the left side is the VIP buyer addendum. We have a separate training on the words to use, so I'm not going to cover that today, but I am going to cover this bottom paragraph. All right? Our fee of 4% of the purchase price plus a VIP buyer profile service fee of $595 will be paid to Hometown Advisor Real Estate by the seller of the property you purchase at the close of escrow. Please notify us of any property you wish to view. Inform other agents, sellers, and builders that Hometown Advisor is working with you as your agent. We will install a sold by sign in the yard of the purchased property at closing. The way we present this is, you know, buyer, when you buy a house, you don't really know what I make. There's no transparency. And that's not really right. That's not fair, right? Because picture this scenario. Selena, you're my client, and you go, Ed, I love both these houses equally. What do you think? Right? Well, one of them has a 1% selling office commission, the other has a 6% selling office commission, and I'm supposed to be objective. Now, I am objective because I'm getting paid 4% and $5.95. And I can tell you which house I like better, which one I think is a better fit based on the criteria you've given me. But the average agent, guess what he's gonna say? The 6. Every single time, right? Because brokers only sell 3.94 homes a year, 6% on a house, that's the equivalent of selling 2. That's 50% of my annual production, right? And that's not right. So when we talk to a buyer about it, we explain that you get transparency and objectivity. You can always trust that the advice I'm giving you is completely objective because it doesn't matter to me which house you buy. That's a benefit, right? Be honest, how many of you thought, man, 4%, buyers are going to hate that. That's expensive. They're going to recognize that's expensive.
Yeah.
Right? That's why we have an objection handler. In V4, you can download 2 or I think there's 3 in there now, flyers on houses where the selling office commission being offered is 6%. And one of them's like an $895,000 house. So I know you guys are all thinking that never happens. It happens. It happens with great regularity. If you want to see, go into the MLS, choose the selling office commission field, and just put 3.5 plus, and you see how many properties are offering higher, 3.5 or more, and it'll be measured in thousands. So don't take for granted that just because all the homes you're showing are at 3 or 2.5 or God fear 2, right? There's lots of them out there. So what we want to do is make a commitment to our client that we charge the same no matter what, and more importantly, it's paid by the seller, right? All right, so how do we do this? Well, let's start by talking about who the players are, right? So you have your client, you have you, who else do you have?
Listing agent,
Listing broker,
escrow,
seller, escrow,
lender.
lender. We know who the buyer and the selling broker are, right? Can we control who the listing and seller are? No, that's going to be a function of the house they fall in love with. Can we control who the escrow officer and the lender are?
Good point.
We 100% can, right? Now, in a competitive market, is it smarter to use the seller's escrow? Sure, but not if you're going to try and get 4%. You want to use a home team escrow and a home team lender that knows how to do it. If you don't, the probability of you collecting the extra VIP fee goes way down, and to 0 in some cases, because they don't know what to do with it. The lender thinks it's illegal. There's all kinds of weird, stupid responses we get, none of which are true. And I'm going to show you how and why it's totally legal, it's totally transparent, it's above board, but it freaks people out. So if you use your home team lender and your home team escrow, you don't get any of that. Does that make sense to everybody? So you should always be driving towards that. Now what happens if your buyer is totally fine with everything, but insists on using his brother-in-law who works for XYZ Mortgage. Are you out of luck now on the VIP fee?
No, you just better explain it.
Absolutely not. You just have to explain it. You need to train him. All right? And here's what I mean. I'm going to show you how we do this through closing cost credits, but absent of explaining it to that new lender, he's going to use that money, your money, to buy down the interest rate and make himself look like a hero. Right? He's going to be like, oh yeah, buyer, there was extra money. I got you down from 4 to 3 3/4. You're welcome. And that was your money that they just used to buy down the rate. Right? So you have to get ahead of that, and you have to train the lender so that they know what funds they use towards closing costs and what funds they do not. Make sense? All right. Now let's talk about the mechanics of it. All right. So it starts with an agency agreement, right? Remember I said the second page is the VIP buyer addendum? The third and fourth pages are the agency agreement. Right? So this starts with your initial VIP buyer meeting. So remember, in our presentation we just explained how we get paid, and then we segue to the agency agreement. We literally have it out, we show them down here, right? So I just showed them what we call our 12 promises. That's the VIP buyer addendum, right? And then we segue to this and we go, now this is the agreement that holds me accountable to those 12 promises, right? How many of you, especially you ladies that are new to our firm, think a buyer agency agreement is like a set of handcuffs that secures the buyer to you, and that's why it's kind of scary to ask someone to sign it? Right? Have you ever thought of it that way? You want them to think that it is a set of handcuffs, but it secures you to them, and it forces you to do what you've committed to do. Right? I've just taken something that you might have been fearful of asking to be signed and turned it into something that they want to sign because it's a benefit to them. Does that make sense? Right? So then I draw their attention to a couple things. And I go, okay, this is the agreement that holds me accountable to those 12 promises. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things, and then I'm going to have you look at it, and if it looks agreeable, I'm going to have you sign it. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah. And I go, the first thing is, I'm making this good for a year. Not because I think it's going to take a year, but because I don't want, under the pressure of writing an offer, in this kind of market, it can be stressful because it's urgent, we got to move quickly and that sort of thing. I don't want us to have to even worry about this thing expiring while we're doing that. Plus, it's cancelable. We already talked about that. So you can fire me at any time. So we just put it out for a year so we never have to worry about that. Does that make sense? They go, yep. I go, in the second part, this is where the 4% and $5.95 is spelled out, right? And I just want to make sure you see that it says, and I underline it, shall be paid by the seller. And I'll go, we're never going to ask you to cover any of it. The seller's going to pay it. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah. And I'll slide it over with a pen and say, why don't you look it over? If it looks agreeable to you, go ahead and sign it. And I'm going to look on my phone and figure out when we can get out and look at some properties. And I pull out my phone and I start thumbing through it, waiting for them to review it, right? In the other video, you remember I talked about how they fall in 3 categories. There's the ones that just sign it because they like and trust you at that point. And they know it's cancelable, so they're like, what do I got to lose, right? The second group are the ones that pretend to read it because they never sign anything without reading it. And then they sign it because they like and trust you and they know it's cancelable, right? So that's 67% of the people you meet with. The third group, they're the ones that don't like signing stuff at all and have a handful of different reasons why they won't, right? I never sign anything the first day, or I like to sleep on stuff, or whatever, right? We have objection handlers that are covered in the VIP buyer training. Watch those videos because we get stuff signed, okay? Now, this whole conversation is the first of 3 occasions where we clarify how we're getting paid. All right? Think about that. Let me say this, I'll come back to you, Jamie. In every other firm, they don't even talk about how they get paid. We make a point of talking about it, clarifying it 3 different times. Jamie, did you have a question?
Yeah, what about they said, would that look weak for my offer when the seller see the extra fee?
Of course not. I would never let my fee stand in the way of you getting the perfect house. That would be stupid, right?
Better answer, that's the answer?
That's the answer. Yeah. Remember, this conversation is in an environment like this. We're not getting ready to write an offer. We're just talking about working together. And if they say, well, in this market, does that make my offer look weaker? Number one, I've literally never had anyone say that. But I'm prepared for it. I don't want you to think that
I had one buyer
you don't have an answer to that, right? But I've literally never had anyone say that. Right? Not at this point. They may at the offer writing part. But either way, it's, yeah, no. Here's what the longer version of what I say when I'm looking at, at this is this bottom paragraph spells out how I get paid. My fee is 4% plus $5.95 and it's paid by the seller. And then I zip it and I listen to hear if there's a negative reaction. Oh, that sounds high, or whatever, right? If they say that sounds high, I go, actually, commissions are not a fixed number, and they range from 0.5% to I've seen as high as 6%. And so what we decided a long time ago was that's not right. You should be able to trust what information I'm giving you and not be influenced by that. So we fixed ours. And all this paragraph says is that you're giving me the right to negotiate it if they're offering something less. And if I can't get it, that's fine. I'll accept what they're offering because I never want to let my commission stand in the way of you getting the perfect house. But I'm at least going to try, right? And I'm a pretty good negotiator. So if I succeed, it's only because you also get the house. If I don't succeed, you're still going to get the house. Does that make sense? And they're like, yeah, that's pretty selfless, right? They feel like the warm embrace of an ally when you explain it that way, right?
It's a good resource.
So now they're looking it over, they're signing it, we're booking an appointment to go look at houses. I'm done with the VIP buyer presentation, watch that video, okay? So that's the first of 3 times that I explain it, right? So the documentation is Form 41A, which is the BAA, Buyer Agency Agreement, right? VIP Buyer Addendum, which is an addendum to that agreement, right? Now we're getting to where we're going to write an offer. So we're showing houses, they find one, right? That house is offering a 3% selling office commission. What is my VIP fee? If my agreement is 4% plus $5.95, what's the shortfall?
What was the price?
Just give me percentages.
1%.
1% plus $5.95, right? Scott's exactly right. We need to know the price to know the dollars. But in that example, I'm 1% and $5.95 short. We are actually going to ask for that as a closing cost credit on Form 22.
D.
No. Form
A.
22A. Paragraph 4. Right? So it's equal to 4% plus $5.95 minus whatever the SOC is. So let's put some numbers to it. Let's say it's a $500,000 house. 1% plus 595 is 5595, right? Now, what if my buyer wants closing costs for, credit from the seller for their own closing costs? Can it come out of the 5595? Well, it can ultimately if that's what it takes to close, but I prefer that we get their closing costs on top of mine. Does that make sense? Scott?
So if they don't get all theirs paid for, let's say we only get so many or so much, whatever it works out, do you always keep your fee at the full 1% plus 595, or do you reduce it to get theirs covered
Great
first?
question. So I'm going to put some numbers to it for everyone else, and then I'll answer it. So let's say in my example, it's the same $500,000 house, and my buyer also wants $5,000 in closing costs. So I'm actually asking for $10,595, right? And the seller says, that's too much, you don't need that much, I'm changing it to $7,500, just to make up a number, right? So it just went down by $3,095, right? And Scott's question is, does the buyer eat that? Does Ed eat that? Or do we share in it? Ed eats it every time. Because remember, my commitment to my client is their interest will always be ahead of mine. So just to finish the math, I was trying to get $55.95, but I now have to take $3,000 off of that, right? $3,100-ish. So I'm only going to get $2,000. So I made $15,000 from the SOC, and I got an extra $2,000 because of my VIP fee. Is $17,000 better than $15,000? Heck yeah. Would $20,000 have been better than 15? Of course.
Yeah.
But did I sell a house? That's ultimately the goal. Jamie.
So in the Form 22A, asking for seller credit, so in
Yep.
that, we put selling credit and then the VIP fee together there.
Yep. So the
How do
buyer
we know?
closing cost credit plus your VIP fee.
But we tell the lender know that is included.
We don't tell the lender yet.
How do they know?
We ask the lender, right? I'm going to morph Jamie's question because I'm going to then come back around and answer it. But this all, before I even present the offer, I have to call the lender. Hey, Adrian, the Joneses found a house, we're going to write an offer, and they said that they needed a closing cost credit. How big? How much? And if Adrian says $5,000 should cover it, I want you to call bullshit on that. That's a random round number pulled out of the air, right? I want specifics. These lenders have to disclose specifics. TRID requires it, right? So get a non-round number from your lender. Oh, okay, well, he'll say, what's the purchase price? $500,000. Okay, they need $53.92. Perfect. Take $53.92, add my $55.95. That number is what I'm going to request in the 22A. You should never, on paragraph 4 of 22A, it should never be a percentage, ever. Right? You see people write, give me 3%. That is so lazy, it makes me disgusted. Right? Or they ask for a big round number. If your lender won't give you a specific number, fire them, number one. But if, let's say it's Adrian and he just says, I'm in the car, I know it's $5,000, I know $5,000 is enough, I can't tell you what the exact number is. Don't ask for $5,000, ask for 4,926 or some random number. Does that make sense? Because if I'm the seller, the easiest way to take $5,000 and put it back in my pocket is to strike your closing cost credit, right? Well, if it's just $5,000 even, or 3%, I know that's not based on anything other than you trying to take money out of my pocket if I'm the seller. so I strike it, right? So don't let it be a round number. All right, so we got Form 22A has that dollar amount. We also need to define how that money gets to be used, all right? We do that with Form 22D, paragraph 12, closing cost redefinition. So let me show you how you do that. If you're lazy like me, you have
Yeah, or smart.
You
exactly.
have either saved a 22D onto your desktop that has this language already in it, or you have it on Notepad or some place where you can copy and paste it, right?
I have it in a side folder.
And I
in
use
email.
email signatures, which of course, I save new ones all the time, so I may have bumped it out. Hang on. I think I bumped it out. So you don't get to see Ed's shortcut, sorry. But you do get to see it in V4.
I can send it to you faster, probably.
There is a 22D in the agent resources section of V4. And you can get that language from there. So you click on Foundation for Success, click on the Resource tab. And where is it?
It's in your inbox if you want it.
Yeah, but I'd like to show people where to find it. Is it
Um,
in the buyer section or agent training? There it is, buyer. So it's in the revenue, VIP buyer revenue pillar. And it's on the resources tab. And just download it and save it to your machine. Because it has this. Closing costs, as referenced in paragraph 4 of the financing addendum form 22A, include, but are not limited to, attorney fees, intangible tax, title insurance, title exam fees, buyer agency fees, lender inspection fees, appraisal fee, tax service fee, underwriting fee, courier fee, short sale negotiation fee, or processing fees and loan origination fees. Seller agrees to allocate the closing costs between fees identified above and lender-defined closing costs as necessary to satisfy lender requirements. 13 different types of fees, and buyer agency fee is in the middle of it. So that's what allows escrow then to take a portion of this $10,595 that's in the agreement and allocate it to your VIP fee. Does that make sense? Do you also now see how if my lender isn't on board, he might take that whole $10,595 and use it to buy down the rate? And that's my money.
Is that a problem when you don't use our lenders? I mean, is it, you have
It
the
can be.
education process?
It can be. So that's a great question, and I want to dig in just a little bit. It's not the end of the world. You're going to have buyers that have loyalties to some other lender, right? Don't let that panic you, but also don't miss this. You cannot skip the step of educating them. And it's just a phone call. It's, hey Joe, my name's Ed Lane. The Watsons said that you're their lender. It's really nice to meet you. I'm excited to work with you. I just wanted to let you know that we are putting together an offer right now, and there's actually an extra sum of money in the closing cost credit that is going to go towards an obligation of the Watsons, but it's being paid by the seller for an agency fee. So when you get this purchase and sale, you're going to see a closing cost credit of $10,595, but you only get to use $5,000 of it. The other $5,595 is going towards this agency fee. Does that make sense? Oh, I've never heard of that, or yeah, I guess, or I'm gonna have to run it by my underwriter. That's fine. Let me just draw your attention to one other thing that's in the purchase and sale. We've actually had the buyer and the seller agree to allow you to allocate that money wherever you need to in your escrow instructions, so that escrow can put it on the HUD wherever you need to make it acceptable. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah, okay, awesome. Right? So I've coached that lender. I'm going to remind him again when I send the purchase and sale over. Hey, let me draw your attention to this page 7 or whatever it is. That's where the credit costs are. Remember what I said, you get 5,000 of it, but no more. The other 55.95 is going towards something else. Does that make sense, Jay?
Yeah, but you're saying that they both agreed on it because they signed the contract,
Yeah, we got
Purchase sale.
initials and initials. Scott,
Since the HUD changed to the disclosure
hang on one sec.
statement, do we know now where it is on that disclosure statement, like 71 or whatever? I
No,
mean,
it's,
line-
every lender could put
Okay.
a different place.
All right.
Dr. Ken is here? I know. Tell him we're still probably 25 minutes away from being ready for him. All right. What time is it? 10:43.
Ed,
Yes.
does the seller ever see that we have the extra 1% and 595 anywhere in the contract?
Yeah, yeah, because on the 22A, they agreed to it,
Okay.
right? And don't worry, I'm going to cover how do you communicate that to the listing broker.
Okay.
All right? So right now, we're just talking about what are the paperwork that you need, all right? So we got the 22D. There's also a VAP buyer invoice that Kat prepares. All right? She's actually going to send an invoice to escrow that shows $55.95 is due to Hometown Advisor Real Estate for a buyer agency fee. All right? And this is all broken down on our commission calculation forms. Right? There's a separate field right up here, $84.95. So that's the invoice she's going to send on this deal. And I'll bet you, because that is awesome, it's already in here. Right? So that's $7,900 plus $595. That's 1% plus $595 of a $790,000 purchase. Easy money, right? Any questions on that?
VIP buyer invoice, Cat prepared that one.
Yep, Kat will prepare it.
So we let her know?
Yeah, when you send a mutual, the transaction form asks you, are there any VIP fees? So I'd say 80+% of the deals don't have that. But we have 100 brokers, and there's a lot of them that you never see in this training, right? So they're not gonna know how to do this, but you guys are. And here's the way I want you to think about it. You deserve it on every deal. You decide each deal whether it's worth pursuing. But I get the agency agreement signed on every client I work with, so I have the opportunity to get it on every deal. Elliot, when's the last 4% deal? How long ago?
I don't know, 6 months maybe.
Why? Fight Attorneys got one yesterday.
Oh boy.
All right. Any question on the documentation?
Not on yours.
Ours.
Not on ours. My new one.
Do we, when we submit our offer, we don't need to attach the 41A,
No.
no, right? And
Uh-uh.
VIP buyer, no,
No.
not that, it's just for
Yeah.
us.
In fact, the listing broker isn't gonna see the invoice, he's not gonna see the agency agreement. All he's gonna know is you needed $10,595 on your deal. So that's a good segue for the presentation, right? So now I've written this offer, and I've got $10,595 in my offer. Before I have my client sign it, I have to call them. This is explanation and clarification number 2, right? Hey Scott, I'm working up that offer we were talking about on 1234 Main Street. I just wanted to let you know that there is a small fee shortfall on our agreement, and so I've included that in the closing cost credit. It doesn't matter if it's 12 grand. It's always a small fee shortfall, right? And this is their opportunity to go, I don't remember that, or what do you mean? Remember when we sat down, I said my fee was 4% plus $5.95. This particular seller is being a little cheap, so there's a small fee shortfall, right? Now this could be where Jamie's earlier question comes up. Well, is that going to cost me this house? No, sellers are all about net. So we're asking for a closing cost credit for you. They're going to reduce that in, it's going to reduce the net to them. But in the end, I'm going to waive mine if that's what it takes to win. So you don't have to worry about that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
When you send the offer, do you need to mention to the listing
I'm going to get to
broker?
that.
Okay.
Right? So now I've re-educated my client, right? Now I want to educate the listing broker. But educate is it's not really educate. It's to make sure you leave my fee in there, right? So remember, we always make 2 calls before presenting any offer. The first call was to find out if you had other offers, how high we need to be, are there any terms besides price that are important to your client, build rapport, all of those goals, right? The second call is, hey, now we're getting ready to submit it. I just want to see if you got any new offers. Do we need to revise? Is that going to be a problem, right? So I'm building rapport. I'm doing all the same things like the first call, but now I'm adding one nuance. Hey, Scott, one thing I want to bring your attention to is we're putting a super strong offer in front of your client. I don't even think you're going to need to counter. That's how strong it is. But if you do feel the need to counter, we do have some closing costs built into the offer. Leave those intact. Please don't strike them, because those are critical for us landing the ship on time and getting you paid. Does that make sense? I guess. So if you're going to counter in price. Leave the closing costs alone. I have to communicate that to the listing broker, or else they're more likely to strike the closing costs. Right? So then we send the offer in. We do all the normal things we do with our offers. We have cover letters that complement them, that increase the likelihood they're going to send that cover letter off to their client as well. We highlight all the strengths of the offer. We include the pre-approval letters or proof of funds, all the normal stuff. But we precede it with a phone call to protect and guard our VIP fee. Does that make sense?
I had to do all of that yesterday.
All right. Make sure listing broker knows to counter in price. That's it. All right. Can you do this when there's multiple offers, and if you're using an escalator clause?
I did.
Yeah. I love Tracy's expression. I don't see why not. That's what you were thinking, right? Yeah,
How do you do it?
absolutely. So we have a separate video on this specific part of it, but I want to describe it to you so you don't feel like, oh, multiple offer situation, that's out. That's not true, all right? Here's how you do it. Your client's going to be pre-approved to a certain number. You can take your VIP fee and add it right on top of whatever their maximum is. All right? So let's keep using my example. $500,000 sale, and let's say Adrian said that's it. They can't qualify for a penny more. I can still write the offer at $505,595. And in a competitive environment, I just gifted them $5,600 worth of beating out other people, right? Could that $5,595 be enough to win?
Yep.
Certainly more than 500, right? But I can commit to my seller, hey, I'm gonna cover that, so don't worry. When the dust settles, you're not spending a penny over 500. I would never do that to you. But we're gonna try and make sure you win, and I'm willing to participate in that. Does that sound selfless? Noble? Probably all the above, right? So we write that offer, it goes in, our escalator gets triggered, and we win at 503, let's say. All right, it did take some of that 55.95 to win. We get mutual, then I come back around to the listing broker and I go, you know what? We figured out we can reduce the closing cost credit by $3,000. Here's an addendum that changes the price back to 500 and reduces the closing cost credit from 10,595 to 7,595. So the net to the seller is the same. It actually is better for the seller because his excise tax, his title, and escrow fees are all a function of price. So everything got cheaper for him, and his net stayed the same. Does that make sense to everybody?
I've never signed an addendum.
And my VIP fee just went from $55.95 to $25.95. But I'm okay with that because I also made $15,000 on the selling office commission. Does that make sense to everybody? Before I answer that?
Don't you have a form too that you're using where you can kind of help?
Yep,
play with the
we have an
numbers?
Excel spreadsheet that's in that other video I was talking about. So we can help you with that math. The spreadsheet is a tool for you to do that math. What was your question?
I've just had Kat do a new commission disbursement form with the lower amount.
You have to have an addendum to your agreement because without an addendum, the closing cost credit didn't change. And without the addendum, the purchase price didn't change. So there's what you're describing is they ended up short to close by $1,200. I'm going to contribute that out of my VIP fee. That's another benefit of this approach. You've got some money that you can share if it helps someone buy their dream home, right? Selena.
This is continue that topic. So the mutual agreement we did yesterday, and we have already filled out the disbursement form. We need to send to the listing agent to tell, hey, we're going to do that, and we need another addendum form agreement.
Well, yours is already mutual, so you don't have any of this built into it. There's nothing to adjust.
Okay, but we do going to credit back her commission.
We
Yeah.
don't need.
Yeah.
We don't need it.
Yeah, you'll need an addendum for that.
Right. So
Your
she-
file is in here. Right now, there's no
Oh.
reference in the file to your credit.
Okay, so she need to initiate the conversation with you or listing agent, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a Form 34 that says selling broker is going to credit 71%. Because in this example, they're the buyers also. And so Sharon's going to kick in her portion of the commissions to the deal. So yeah, you do an addendum for that.
Okay.
Because you want to think of the contract as instructions to escrow. So absent of that addendum, they would just give you the money.
Yeah, yeah.
So I will send the form to Kat first, and the listing, the escrow officer.
No, you draft a form and you send it to your client first
Yeah, I
to
signed
initial,
and
then you send it to the seller, the listing broker,
Yeah.
to get the seller's initial, then you give it to Cat and escrow.
So it's like only mode in this transaction?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then can they do that 75% as credit? They have to do price reduction, right?
No, they can do credit. As long as it doesn't exceed the closing costs.
71%?
We're on a tangent. That's not part of this video, so I'll answer that later. Thanks, Selena, for hijacking my spiel here. All right, couple potential objection handlers that you might need. You send it over, listing broker says, yep, I understand, send it over, thanks for writing an offer. They get the offer, he calls you immediately and goes, $10,595, that's too much. You ever had that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Your answer is, I just get the numbers from the lender and I put them in the offer. So please counter in price, because that's what they said they needed. If you feel the need to counter in price. Why do you need that much money? I just get the info from the lender and put it in the offer. Right? You don't owe them an explanation. It's a number. It's a net figure to the bottom line of the seller. If it's unacceptable, counter. But please counter in price. Okay?
But they do have a right to counter the closing costs.
Of course. They have the right to reject your offer. They can do whatever they want. That's why rapport is really important. And I'm coaching the agent into countering price because I know they could just strike the closing costs. But I want them to feel and know, and this is true, when a buyer asks for a closing cost credit, it's usually because they need it. So when you strike it, if you're a listing broker and you strike it, you should assume that that probably increases the likelihood this buyer cannot buy that house. That should be so unimportant to you as a listing broker and a seller. What matters is the net. So instead of striking it, increase the price, send it back, right? If I get this offer back and they've now gone to 505.95, I call my client, I say, great news, we got a counter. Why is that great news? Because we're in a negotiation, man, right? What could be worse? They don't counter at all, they just say, this offer sucks, we're not even gonna respond, right? So they've countered in price, we just have to decide if that's acceptable to us. And then from there, I can waive my VIP fee to get it down if I have to, but that's not my goal. That's not my first line of defense, right? All right.
I was able to get a buyer to split it with me, the difference.
Yeah, we've had buyers say, no way, man, you get that. You deserve that. You earn that. So we get it. All right? So getting paid. Just to wrap up, right? We're going to explain it 3 times to our clients. We're going to make sure we have the paperwork right. Make sure the listing broker knows to counter in price. Make sure the lender knows what they can and can't use. Whoa. Right? Does that make sense? So pop quiz, what are the forms we need? 22A with the closing costs, 22D, buyer agency agreement with the VIP buyer addendum attached, the invoice that Kat will prepare. And do you see how if we use an away team lender, this all can be in jeopardy because they don't know whether you can do it, if it's legal, if it's allowed, any of that stuff.
What if we get the 4%, but we don't have a buyer agency agreement signed? What happens and what are we at risk for?
You're not entitled to collect it. You shouldn't have collected it. You will have to return it. Do you have one of those? That won't happen. Kat won't submit an invoice without it.
That's right, she asked for the agreement before.
Yeah.
Because I've had some that I'm working with right now that aren't signed up.
That's the thing, right? You'll have opportunities where you're like, man, I could have gotten one. But I didn't follow my own process at the beginning, so I don't have the right to get one.
Or once we get the house we want, I can talk to them again about it.
Yeah.